if it's read as a journey through the psyche, as we would read, say, what's the movie that we watched? The Jake Gyllenhaal movie that we watched? Enemy. It's kind of, I see it very similar to it. It's kind of similar to that. I mean, you could look at it that way. It's a female version of Enemy. In Enemy, it's this guy coming to grips with his change in role as a man, becoming a family man from a single man, and maybe dealing with infidelity as a sort of a natural instinct that he may have to either suppress or bring within himself, right? So I kind of see this, it could be read in the same way, but I sort of an opposite reflection of it, because not only is it a woman who is, in this case, cheating on her husband, who is away, and so she feels very guilty, and I saw that as sort of the central struggle that she has, not sorrow that he's gone, but this guilt that is gnawing at her. But also that rather than in Enemy, Jake Gyllenhaal trying to push down the aspect of himself that causes him to cheat on his spouse, Natalie Portman's character, very interestingly, accepting the part of herself that makes her cheat on her husband. Not that cheating is a good thing, but maybe it's good for her, because the person who she cheats with, the colleague, he seems like a very virtuous character, a very virtuous man, and he's willing to cheat on his wife, and he feels no guilt about cheating on his wife, as though he's sort of this, not a Buddha character, but enlightened in the sense that I know why I'm cheating on my wife. I love my wife too. I'm a man with certain needs. I understand myself. I know that society views this as bad, but I accept this thing about myself. I'm a guy, and I wanna cheat on my wife with you. I enjoy it, right? It's something I know about myself. This is how I read it. And so when Natalie Portman feels this angst and this guilt about cheating on her husband, even though maybe this was a very genuine act, I sort of saw it as, by the end, now maybe she understands the part of herself that made her want to do that, and maybe her inclination to cheat on her husband with this guy completes her as a person, even though it's not viewed by society as acceptable. Maybe she can sort of accept this aspect of herself. Before, she had this gnawing guilt because this is a thing that you're not supposed to do. You're not supposed to cheat on your husband. But maybe now she tells her husband, who is kind of a shell of a man now, hey, listen, I want to have an open marriage. I know this cool guy who I like having sex with sometimes, and I'm interested in exploring a relationship with him, but I also want to be married to you. This is an adult kind of thing to think. This is a thing that maybe stands outside of ethics, but might be part of her understanding who she is in a sort of Jungian sort of way. Does that make sense?
Sure. Yeah. And I think in the book, she doesn't cheat on her husband. She just is really distant, and that's pretty much it. They have, well, and when the professor colleague mentions to Natalie Portman, she says something like, your husband can't tell you about his job. You can't talk to him about your job. So you don't have this mental connection with each other. But you and I, professor to professor, we do have that mental connection. So you can, that part of your life is sort of satiated or fulfilled. And then I don't know did you understand that the timeline is that she has been having this affair while her husband has been away, and then he comes back, and then he gets chosen to go to, or he actually, I don't know, I think he volunteers to go to Area X because he found out about the affair, and now he wants to go away. Okay, yeah, so he wants to go away, and that's sort of, the rift in their relationship is what drove him to go to Area X. And it sounds like at this point people kind of understand that it's a suicide mission. I don't know in the movie. In the book, I can't remember how much they talk about it being a suicide mission, but so when she says that she owes him, when the copy is laying on the the doctor's slab or whatever, she means that now I understand that my decisions drove you to go to area X. So I owe it to you to go to area X to figure out what's wrong with you so I can fix you.
Okay.
It's kind of that's the way I read it.
Yeah, that's interesting. I mean, I see that too. I definitely read it a different way, though. I read it more as gnawing guilt has forced me to take an action that will hopefully allow me to redeem myself. I sort of see it as two journeys into themselves. Maybe when he finds out that his wife is cheating on him, he has to sort of go within himself to try to understand what that means in terms of his manhood, in terms of his future, or whatever that might be, because there's been an imbalance, an offset is created, and I've been reading recently Psychology of the Unconscious, and it's good, by Carl Jung. And
what are you reading?
Psychology of the Unconscious by Carl Jung.
Okay.
Yeah, it's good. And it's sort of like, I mean, it's all about whatever puts the ego off its axis, creates a series of monsters that only diving into yourself and confronting the monsters will correct, right? So both of them need to go into the abyss, right? Both of them have to go through this journey. But that's why when they see, if you view the film as sort of this, and if she is this person going within herself or going into her own abyss to try to understand this whole situation with her husband, then you have to view the other characters that are with her as part of herself, sort of facets of herself. And she's going farther and farther and facing monsters and realizing she's in this place that is bizarre and strange to her because these are elements of herself that are sort of buried and deep. And she's going toward this lighthouse. The lighthouse is the thing which shines the way forward, which is supposed to be your compass, which is supposed to be where you're going, right? Mm-hmm. But it's obscured, and you don't know where it is, and you don't know which way it's pointing. And when you look at your own compass, it's pointing in all sorts of different directions. You don't know what's going on. So each of them are going into this place. He's gone there before her, and that's why you see the video of him cutting open one of his companions. Like, he's going through some pretty heavy stuff and some confusing things to finally get to the lighthouse. When he gets to the lighthouse, his realization is different than her realization. His realization, and maybe you have something to say about the different things that happen in terms of the Asian philosophy or Asian religious viewpoint on this, but sort of his process takes him to essentially a point where once he returns, he's no longer at all the person that he was as a husband. And hers maybe leads her to a point where she's more fulfilled, not as a wife, but as a person. She seems to be more alive than he is, and he seems to be less alive than he was. So I don't know if he was defeated by that process, but it seems like they went through the same process and faced the same monsters or had to deal with the same sort of inner demons and just came out with slightly different outcomes. She understood it and came back and eventually burned it down. He decided to self-immolate, essentially, because maybe the truth that was revealed to him was too much to bear.